Hey, good day, everybody. My name is Tom Owen. I'm a cloud architect with Microsoft. I've been with Microsoft since 1996. And today we're going to be talking, this is one of our multiple parts in a series on compliance records and eDiscovery. Last session was involved in content search and core eDiscovery. Today we're going to be looking at advanced eDiscovery and taking a detailed look at that. So again, thank you for making time to view this session today. Welcome aboard. Let's get going. Over the last couple of weeks in these multiple sessions, we did focus on the Compliance Center, Compliance Manager, and the new core eDiscovery and advanced eDiscovery capabilities are in the Compliance Center, which is at compliance.microsoft.com. We talked about the permissions. I'll start there. We'll show you that. And then we focused on retention policies and the ways that we can hold and commit content to records and retain that content with either a retention policy, file plan policy, classification label, preservation label that we can apply to content, or via queries and placing content on hold via an eDiscovery search or record search. Then last time we got together, we talked about compliance boundaries and search and content search in core eDiscovery. Again, content search is really for that quick and easy, very simple search, like maybe we're doing a message trace and the results weren't all the way everything that we expected, so we're going to do a content search. Core eDiscovery is really the baseline for any eDiscovery, any matters, any case, any content that you're going to want to export or produce. And then today, advanced eDiscovery is really the tool, complete with reviewing capabilities, with some automation and a number of feature functions that we'll be delving into today. We do have these slides available, and I do want to point out that I replaced these items. So instead of clicking this link would normally take you to Microsoft.com Advanced eDiscovery and give you a bunch of sales and pre-sales information. Now it'll take you right to the support docs, and that's very important. We've got great documentation on Advanced eDiscovery. It has been refreshed, and you will see again Advanced eDiscovery appears in compliance.microsoft.com, and that is where you should be starting off from. Now, when we talked about records, we did talk about this in-place records, and this is very much true for advanced eDiscovery. And even the last couple of days, had some discussions about how we handle content that is placed on a hold versus solutions, hold content. And this is a major change. In most other solutions, what you would do is take information like Exchange servers, and we had these vaulting solutions, ComVault, eVault, Tom's Vault, Bob's Vault, all these vaulting solutions, and they were really designed to help enhance the performance of your Exchange environment or your SharePoint environment, really only focused on email. So our eDiscovery product works across the entire suite of Office 365, including external connectors, and now the ability to import or load data from outside of Office 365 into advanced eDiscovery. Important distinction. In place, when we hold content, that content will remain in place in Office 365. I'm not taking a vaulting solution and pulling information as we did in the past, and these tools were primarily used for performance reasons. We had very expensive fiber channel RAID 10 storage, so we had this very expensive SAN. Typically, it was about $50,000, and I know you're thinking that, hey, I can buy a 1 terabyte drive at Best Buy or Fry's for like $50. This managed, highly available storage area network used to cost in the 2007 Exchange timeframe was about $50,000 a terabyte. So if you had 10 terabytes, you're spending $500,000 on storage for that very high performant, highly available fiber channel 10. And so many people would get that email off, A, to increase the performance of Exchange, and then B, to decrease the cost by tiering their storage and progressing the data, least used data, down to cheaper like SATA RAID 5, or even just a bunch of disks where you're taking a bunch of those $50 1 terabyte drives and throwing them in a storage controller or hooking them together on your own without any software or any management. Anyway, so many people were doing this and moving their Exchange data to these um, offline or nearline stores, vaulting solutions out there. They were progressing this data manually out, that these third parties started building solutions. And many folks came up and they bolted on like a legal hold and eDiscovery, but you weren't holding that in place. You weren't holding that here in Exchange. You were holding that content in a second copy. So there, this making multiple copies of your data and moving content off, you really had all of these problems of, multiple stores, sources of truth, content being deleted, running into issues of spoliation. With in-place records, we're just going to keep everything in place. Everything is going to stay up and in the cloud. And the really kind of funny thing here with this example that I'm using here is that, I was in this one city and they said, hey, when an employee leaves the city XYZ, we have to keep their content for 100 years. And I was like, well, great. What'd you do 40 years ago with emails, back in the 80s? And they would like, oh, we'd take a mailbox, we'd print every item out and put it in this banker's box and ship it off to a salt mine. Cool. What did you do, with technology, advances in technology? You surely don't still print out every email and put it in a banker's box and ship it to a salt mine. They say, oh, no, 25, 30 years ago, we got these laser disc systems. So they took me into their basement where they had shelves and shelves of, they were probably $2,000 a piece, but literally millions of dollars of laser discs. And I pulled one out of the album jacket. I don't know what you call it, with a laser disc jacket, and it had laser rot. And I pulled another one, laser rot. And laser rot is a technical term for moisture getting in between the layer of the plastic and the silver coating on the plastic. So while they did have stuff that was supposed to be archival and kept for 100 years, none of that was any good. And I don't know if you can even buy a Laserdisc player or a data Laserdisc player anymore these days. The really cool thing with Office 365 and in-place records is that when you look back at these tools and the capabilities that we offered, back in the original days, we only had a 5 meg mailbox, and that cost you $20 for that mailbox per user per month. And you got 5 whole megabytes. Today, you get 100 gig in an unlimited archive for a heck of a lot less than $20. And in the old days, when we're talking 2007, when Business Productivity Online Suite shipped, we were using 7,500 RPM drives. So 7,500 RPM drives. And then in about the 2010 timeframe, we went to 10K, and then we went to 15K. And now today we're running on SSD. The cool thing is that if I put a hold, maybe I had a case in the BPAWS days, and we went from BPAWS in 2010 to Office 365, and then in 2012 we went to like those 10K RPMs. 2013 we went to 15K RPM drives. 2015 we went to solid state disk. The cool thing is that if I held this mailbox back here in the 7.5 RPM drives in 2007, back in, whoops, I did that hyphen in the wrong place, but back in 07 using a 7,500 RPM disk, and that case is still going on today 13 years later, guess what? Our cost actually decreased, and that content is being stored on solid state disk. So you got all the advantages of these new storage technologies and a decreasing cost and immutable, and I can still get and produce and read that content today. Huge, huge, huge benefits. So in place has the tremendous number of benefits. We're holding this content in place. And we have it there available for you on new storage technologies. So there's a bunch of benefits here, a whole lot of feature function capabilities that you can take advantage of. And there wasn't really any room on this slide for disadvantages, so we'll move right along. But again, you have your items immutable. We attest. We get you a letter of attestation. It is a single source of truth. It's kept there. And you can hold this content. I liken also this old capabilities that we used to have. I grew up in Minnesota, where Jesse Ventura, when he was governor, made fishing and hunting a right of every citizen in Minnesota. And when you go fishing, you go fishing. Just like in eDiscovery, you want to go out and discover items. You create a great query, the bait that you're going to put on your hook. You drop your query in the water. You find the information and you pull that fish out of the water. These old systems with vaulting and all this old junk, basically it would be like using one of these fire dousers, a firefighting plane. You go out and scoop up all the water and the fish and the other animals, and then you bring them back and you put it in this swimming pool, and then you send divers down to look for the fish that you're looking to find and then pull up. It's really futile. It's archaic. With in-place records, we avoid this. We basically say, hey, here's our data lake, here's our information, here's our content. And again, with this query, I'm going to bait the hook with corn to catch a rockfish, with worms to catch a crappie. So I've got the right bait on my hook, the right query to grab that fish. And I'm only going to take the fish out of the water. I'm not going to scoop up all this data and move it over here and then search for something. I'm going to keep it in place. I'm going to hold it in place. So these old systems where you took your information, you popped it in here, and never mind your SharePoint data and your OneDrive data and your Teams data and all the data connectors, all this grabbed was Exchange, and it threw it into some big enterprise vault, and then you had to go out and search that. And then you maybe made another copy, and maybe you exported stuff. It just exposes you to all sorts of issues and attestation issues and potential spoliation, etc. So in-place records is just the way to go. I mentioned previously that there are multiple ways to hold content, and in our E5 suite, we have file plans and information management retention, and I use the height here for the number of users. I use the width for the amount of content in your corpus of data. And then any E3 or any Plan 2 capability will have these classification labels, and they're really only classification labels really only do two things. They preserve and they protect data. So preservation with a retention label, protection with a sensitivity label, and that's what you have these labels for. And then with Teams, we do have modern group location and modern group members that we can also preserve content that's a chat content, or maybe a file that I'm uploading in a chat message to share with somebody. I can retain that content, search for that content, discover that content, hold that content using those labels. And that gets us to these top two, which is our inactive or our litigation, our query based. And these are methods or means of preservation. And I won't have room for that, but preservation to preserve our content due to a case or a legal hold. Now, the other thing that's very important to point out here is that there are principles of this retention. That retention will always win over deletion. The longest retention win and shortest deletion will win, except for, and we have to be very clear here, coming back to this chart, I always say I wish I could have another third dimension here to look at this chart, and I would draw on this chart that we have implicit and we have explicit. Explicit is always going to win over implicit. If I have an explicit preservation hold on content, that's going to win over an implicit purge in our records management area. So again, explicit is always going to win over implicit. I took these little wedding cake drawings of my pyramid and I attached them to, so again, we've got the three bottom layers here for information management. We've got the top two up here, how we preserve content with legal holds. We run a query, we grab that content, we place that content on hold in case the case or the matter is, when the matter is resolved, we remove that hold, we delete the case, then the content can go back in. The explicit preservation of that content overridden by the implicit. Now that the holds are released, the content will then come up for purge or destruction or a disposition review. And we've covered this in other sessions. And again, with our eDiscovery tool, the number one thing or the most important thing on this chart back when the standards group created this slide was that as the relevance of content should increase, the volume should decrease. And that's one thing we're doing in a big, big way, helping you organize, minimize, and then review and analyze your content with advanced eDiscovery. The other thing that I like about this, instead of most tools, which are straight line, to have all these complex workflow and work assignments and work reassignments, hey, you don't have to do that. We can have, Joe, who is doing our information governance and creating our retention policies. And then we can have Sally, who's identifying information, and Fred, who's collecting information, and Bob, who's preserving information, and Joanne, who's going to analyze the information, and then Beth, who's going to process that information. So again, we can assign this work. And the really cool thing is, with advanced eDiscovery, a lot of these things can be handled in a very automated fashion for you, saving tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of hours annually, and greatly reducing your costs. The other thing I wanted to point out here, and it's very important to look at this, because people go, well, gosh, we've got a single big tenant for our state or our city, and we've got all of these users, and we've got, DOR in here, and DOC and DOT. We've got all of these DHS in here, and we don't want somebody from DOC searching DHS information or likewise. So the really cool thing is that we have these compliance boundaries. Now, out of the box, you have search permissions, filter, control access. So again, unless I specifically invite or specifically share a SharePoint folder, a OneDrive, or a Microsoft Teams from the Department of Corrections with DHS, they won't have any access to that content. And then we can go one step further and use our admin roles, our role-based access controls, as we've shown before, the permissions that I'm about to show you, to really relegate people who have search capabilities to only that data which they should be able to search. In addition, we can use these things called compliance boundaries, and we can say, hey, I'm going to bound Child Protective Services with one of these custom attributes 1 through 15 in Active Directory. So in Active Directory, we have our users and groups. We have Azure Active Directory Connect, which synchronizes those users and groups. I can use these custom attributes in Active Directory and say, hey, I am in Child Protective Services. I am a manager in Child Protective Services, so I can see Child Protective Services content. I'm in Aging and Adult Services. I cannot see Child Protective Services. I'm in the Department of Corrections and in institutions. Inside of institutions, I don't want to break that. So I can put compliance boundaries over this content. And then we've also introduced the concept of information barriers in Microsoft Teams. So wherever we have ethical walls or content that should not be viewed by anybody else in the organization, we can create these very stringent ethical information barriers by policy, which is really pretty cool. Again, you have search permissions and user profile services in SharePoint and OneDrive that prevents somebody from seeing content they shouldn't see. And then above and beyond that, we have rights management services and encryption that can further protect content. So I can have content within my OneDrive and have it encrypted, so only I can view and read that, or only my manager can view that content, and maybe somebody else on our team can also co-author or edit that file. So you have this multiple, again, tiered approach with search permissions and user profile services at the bottom. Then we have these compliance boundaries. Then we have, encryption of content. So I should probably do another pyramid, but again, we get more explicit rather than implicit with us protecting that content. So with all that said, let's jump out and we'll take a look at how all this stuff looks, works, and acts. So First, I wanted to start with the permissions. So I'm in a government community cloud tenant here, and most of the work I'm going to do is in the GCC, because all of these feature function capabilities from Compliance Manager with my compliance score, all of these feature function capabilities have now shipped with my improvement actions. I know I did demo this, but I demoed it from a commercial tenant because it had not shipped yet until this Tuesday. The 17th of November 2020, but you will see your eDiscovery here. Now, I was working with a customer and they said, well, I went to compliance.microsoft.com instead of protection.office.com like you told me to, and I don't see anything there. So just know that you do have these and I'm clicking on the wrong thing mostly because I can't get to it. So they came into their navigation and had, maybe these three things checked. And yes, I agree. There is no eDiscovery here, but we can show all, or again, just come down and say, hey, I need to see eDiscovery, information governance, maybe records management. These are the things that I'm interested in. And this is a per user. So when I log in, this is what I see as my menus. Now, when we're talking about advanced eDiscovery in cases and matters management, you might have an occasion to invite external legal counsel to a case. So in these cases, I can say, hey, Mr. Ms. Lawyer, come to compliance.microsoft.com, and they will see only that one case. They will see only the one case that they are privy to out of the tens of thousands or hundreds or couple of cases that you have, but they will only see the case that they are invited to. And you can assign permissions when you create the case. If later somebody else has to be added to the case, we can add new members to the case. We can add new role groups to the case. And again, you can see Bob K., who is my legal counsel outside the organization, was invited as a guest to this case. It said parenthesis guest in his name there. This is also where you'll configure other settings. To get people into these permissions, you do have to today modify the permissions inside protection.office.com, or what we used to refer to as the Security and Compliance Center. Now we've broken those out to a Security or Compliance Center. Security.microsoft.com or compliance.microsoft.com. Use your same user permissions to get in there. But when we look at compliance.microsoft.com, and we look at, and I also meant to check on permissions here, you'll see that today there are only 6 roles in here. So this is not very useful yet today, and maybe I lied, there are 7 now. So this is not very useful today for you to manage your permissions. So still do the role group permissioning in protection.office.com. I was working with the Department of Corrections about a month ago, and they said, hey, we've got people here at the state capitol, and they need to create cases. They need to assign custodians. They need to search for data and export data. They need to be able to decrypt encrypted content. They need to preview, retain, hold these abilities here at the capitol. But out in the institutions, and I was like, oh, we need to create another role. I copied this role, closed this down, named it institutions, and then took away some of those roles and then assigned it to the appropriate person in the Bayview Police Department. So again, you can create these role groups as well as leverage the 49 out-of-the-box role groups that are here for you to leverage. Also, as I'm talking about moving from the Security and Compliance Center to the Security or Compliance Center, and this was really customer-driven because our customers came to us and said, hey, not everybody in security is a compliance officer, and not everybody in compliance is a security expert. So I would need to separate these off because I've got different people for different roles. If you've got the one BDE, and that's not a business development executive, that's the boy does everything. If you've got one BDE who manages both of these, yes, they're going to have 2 dashboards, 2 different websites to go to, but security.microsoft.com, compliance.microsoft.com shouldn't be that hard to remember. Now, when I get to my eDiscovery and I'm going to look at my advanced eDiscovery cases, the cases that I create will move. I don't have to copy. I don't have to migrate. I don't have to worry about anything. The cases that I have over here will move to my compliance center. So they will move to eDiscovery within the compliance center. You'll notice, things work in the compliance center, like my cases, the very specific cases that this admin could see. And I'm going to move to a different tenant with more cases in it in just a second. But this has never ever completed for me. I don't know why it's never worked, but it's never worked. Versus the compliance center, much more performant. The main point here is, even though there's this great big yellow warning here, it's just basically saying that, hey, we are migrating from the old protection.office.com to the new compliance center. So with that, I am going to bounce into a new tenant here. And I did want to say, first and foremost, there's great documentation here. It talks about our alignment with the EDRM model, which is fantastic. And there's great information here, and wonderful content to walk you through the architecture and the whole model, all the capabilities that I'm going to show you right now in a Reader's Digest condensed version. Last time we were together, we talked about content search and core eDiscovery, and one of the big things I hit on there, which is very important, is keyword query language, utilizing to construct your queries to, again, bait that hook and catch those fish. This is a great document that talks about property restrictions, wildcards, operators, property values, last year, last month, today, all of the date range things, date intervals, this month, this year, last year, as you're seeing there, additional queries, etc. Great resource guide. You can download this as a PDF and keep it at your desk side, or download it as a PDF and pop it in a SharePoint site. Download as a PDF, pop it in a OneNote notebook, whatever you so desire, but it is available for you here. The one reason why I like to go online with these documents is they are not static anymore. And I'm, of course, using one of the documents that is static. But if I go back and look at this overview, hey, this was just updated on 11/17/2020 by all of these folks. So it looks like about 9-10 people have been working on this document, including myself, but you can see that this content is fairly dynamic and changes quite frequently. So that might be one reason why you don't download as a PDF. But what I like about paper is that if I had a really useful query, I could write that query on a piece of paper. This is what I used for the Thompson versus DSH case, DHS case. So I digress. But anyway, now we're going to go back to the Compliance Center. I'm at compliance.microsoft.com. I see my eDiscovery, and I'm going to go into our advanced eDiscovery where I have some more cases. And again, I can manage these cases. If I need to create a new case, I click on the cases and create new. In here, I've got my Rosenberg versus the Department of Social Human Services. The first thing you'll notice here is I do have an overview, and if I've been running any recent jobs, I love that we do have this jobs menu. It will show you when things started, if it's in progress, if it was successful, if something, a couple of these I canceled in the middle of a demo. I purposely made this one fail, but you will see exactly what happened and when did this start, and there is a nice little lack of progress bar in here in my data export, which I think I started late yesterday. It's still got a couple things here that are packaging up. One of the nice new capabilities when we export content is to use modern attachments. So when I'm looking at this export that is still in progress here, if I do go to export content from a review set, I can say modern attachments. If you don't know what a modern attachment is, when I'm in Outlook, I can attach a file, and instead of attaching that file, I am actually attaching a link to that file. This is telling me that this document, this audit of small business, is in my OneDrive, and I'm sending a link to that OneDrive. What we can do now is say, hey, I don't want to send that link into the courtroom to defend this matter. I need the file. So we can actually retrieve the file from OneDrive and pop it into this export. So that's why you will see from time to time some of these exports take a little longer. But again, you'll have this information there. Now I'm seeing my packaging and contact export and all of the work that's going on in my tenant. I will see in my review set and my different review sets that I have and how we can create those in just a second. Next is our data sources, and this is where we'll create our custodians, and our custodians can be individuals or teams. So I can have a group assigned as a custodian here. I can now create additional data locations outside or inside of Office 365 and then go off and conduct my searches. I've got about half of my customers. They will actually create their search first and do their hold later. The other half of my customers will do the holds first and then create their search against those holds within the search criteria. If I am doing a new search here, and that's just all the more creative I am late in the day like today, I can pop in all of my custodians. So yeah, I've already named, found, identified my custodians. I'm going to include all of them in this search and all of their data locations. I can now get non-custodian sources, again, data locations or individuals here. And or I can just say, hey, I'm really going to cast a wide net here. I want to catch all the fish. So I'm going to include this to find everybody inside our organization. So this would be all employees. And then I can get to my all locations. So I can say, hey, I need all Exchange mailboxes, all SharePoint, or I can choose individual users, groups, or locations or sites. Which is really nice. We're making this a little bit easier as well. But if I did want to just stick to my custodians, I could continue on here. And then I've got my keyword query, and I can show this as a keyword list. Like I was in a city when a water main broke and it flooded a parking garage, wrecking some people's cars. So if I was looking for floods and the water main broke, I could just type those 2 words, or I could do 10 words. I can add additional conditions here. I could show this as and remove the keywords. Now I've got my keyword query, but I might want to get really fancy here and say, hey, I want to find anytime that flood is within 3 words of Maine. So I can do a near, and maybe I want to make sure that flood always precedes Maine. So I could put an order as near here. Now, some of my users might have typed in email and said, due to the flooding, due to the floods, due to the water main breaking and the flooded conditions, you want to find all of those things. So we can put in a wildcard. Again, get familiar with this keyword query language. Then I can add conditions here, and I can add a date, like if I wanted to do last year, or this type of message kind, like maybe I want IMs and chats in this search, when it was sent, when it was modified, who the author was, who the recipients were. I can add these different things here. And again, I can say equals any of, and maybe, you know, back last year we were using Skype, so I need to catch IMs, but then we moved to Microsoft Teams. So I need to find my IMs and chats, or maybe we see IM and chat as transitory communications and we need to exclude those. So I can exclude it just that quickly. I can go to my date picker here and I can say, well, I need it, you know, from 2019 November, and what is today's date, the 19th. So in the last year, I need that. Or again, I can remove these conditions and leverage my keyword query and say type IM, type chat, and then last year, right? So I could get really good with this keyword query language and do that. If I want to find everything in the corpus, I can remove these conditions and just leave this search keyword query blank. That's going to find me all the information, all of the mail by every location that I've searched for. So all mailbacks, all SharePoint sites, all Exchange public folders, and pull this information in to my search results. So I review those conditions and then I submit this. I'm not going to do that today. I've already got some searches out here, and one of them is an all corpus content, and I really don't have that much content in this tenant. I can rerun this. So if this is again a dynamic case that's still going on, and maybe I've cast a new search out here, I can pull that up. I can look at the statistics on this, and I'll get a nice little summary report of where that content is of my 8,800 items. Yeah, 9,800 items, where the top locations are, who the users are. And this might get me to, well, gee, maybe I forgot to add somebody's SharePoint site or this SharePoint site. So again, that's where I can cast this net wider by adding a new location, editing this search, adding another location. I can look at my queries and see what the queries were that found this information. And again, just a nice, neat summary of that data here as well. I can preview this content, or I can grab a sample of this content. So if I wanted to make sure, hey, am I getting the right information? Like, you know, that getting somebody's My Analytics information, probably not great, but getting this proposal information is. Again, remember, I said just find all the information and bring it back. But again, I can preview that content in a source view. I can expand this window out and go up and down through this content if I'm going to review this, just to make sure that, hey, this search is working and I am catching the proper fish. The next thing I can do is, if these are the proper fish and it's looking good, I can add this to a review set. And within this case, I can have multiple review sets. I can create a review set on the fly, a new review set. And this is where I mentioned that I can grab and collect all versions of SharePoint, not just the major versions or the last version, but I can get all versions of SharePoint. And then I can collect the cloud attachments from items found in my search results. So again, when somebody sends that link to a file in my SharePoint, when somebody sends that link to a file in my OneDrive, it's going to go to SharePoint and pull the document and bring it forward from those cloud attachments. It's going to find the file in my OneDrive and bring it forward into the review set. So I actually do have the true file in that review set. Again, I can edit this search. I can modify the custodians. I can sample this data. I can delete this search, or I could copy this search if it was particularly useful and might be useful into new cases. Now, we've done our searches. We've added content to review sets. I'm going to go into my settings to show, again, we can name this case, number the case, describe the case. We can add, remove members. We also have these additional settings here. So I can say, when is a file duplicate, or when is it part of an email? If it's 95% similar, if it's 100% similar. I've got a customer, I believe the lowest is 40% what they're using. Yes, 40%. And so, I mean, think about that. These two files could be 60% dissimilar, and yet it's going to look similar to me in my reviewing tools. So pretty cool there. We also take these themes and we look at what you're searching for, what you've exported, and we've got this great artificial learning, or artificial intelligence, machine learning. I kind of concatenated the two there to artificial learning, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and we can create these themes. And I do believe now we can have up to 10,000 themes. Yep, can't go any higher than that. But you can say, hey, in this case, I only want the four maximum number of themes, but I can also adjust that maximum number of themes dynamically. And again, this themes are generated to aggregate, much like our Microsoft Defender product aggregates alerts into incidents. So I don't have to look at 10,000 alerts. I just look at these 100 incidents. It aggregates those alerts into appropriate incidents. We're using that same engine here to say, hey, look at the similarity of this and see if there are any themes that have developed here. So that's pretty cool. One of the customers that I work with, they have an acronym. And that acronym is the word the, THE. I don't remember exactly what that stands for, but when they're doing a search, you know, they don't want to find the or the. So the beautiful thing is I can say, hey, ignore these other thes, but we don't want to ignore the acronym the. And then I can say, hey, I want this to apply to themes, or I want this to apply to relevance or near duplicates. But we can ignore the, the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog, which would have hit twice on that, right? And we don't want those. We just want the uppercase, case sensitive THEs. And then I skipped over this, but probably the most important thing on this page is that automation that I mentioned. Automatically create a query for review after running analytics on the review set. So this will put things for review, and you'll also see an automatically generated potentially immaterial items. So that's a cool capability. And then today, if I walk, let's say somebody else, not me, somebody else driving my car through a yellow turning red light, the traffic cam goes off, boom, takes a picture of the license plate. Without any other systems, that picture of the license plate goes into a SharePoint repository. Today, if I search AZP, 3 of the letters in my license plate, I would get no returns. There is no optical character recognition happening on SharePoint out of the box. If I use some other solution, or if I scanned that image of my license plate on a multifunction copier, I might have a solution that does OCR like Kofax, Capteris, Fujiscan. I might have some solution that OCRs, optically character recognizes the content that has gone through that scanner or that multifunction printer and will pull out the OCR. Now, I had a customer who said, gosh, this is taking a long time. Well, they had a lot of MRIs and stuff, and they were all very large files, and it was scanning and looking for words in these MRIs. Or another customer had all their GIS, their geographic information system, that was taking these satellite photos and ingesting it into SharePoint. We don't want to look for those gigantic files. We're looking for these smaller MPEGs, JPEGs, GIFs, whichever you say. And then we've got some, so we don't want to get, we're not looking at an X-ray of a lung for the AZP letters on my license plate. We're just looking for this small photo of my license plate that is in the SharePoint repository. So you can say, don't OCR images larger than 25 meg. And then if this is taking a long time, I can say, hey, let's be a little less accurate for quicker results, or let's be a little bit slower and get better results here. So those are all the capabilities in our search and analytics that we have case by case, and we can adjust those. And then again, when I create my searches, I pop my content in review sets. The beautiful thing here is I will see and get some information on my index status if there were any errors. Unlike our core eDiscovery and content search, I don't even have any idea. I just see, hey, there's a bunch of unrecognized content or partially indexed information. I here can see, hey, there were a couple of, one issue in particular is this file was protected, and I did this on purpose. I used PGP, pretty good privacy, and encrypted a file with protection outside of Office 365, and it caught that file as an error. And again, I could look at those errors and I can remediate or find a path to remediation, because I would see that this was Megan Bowen's file in Megan Bowen's OneDrive. And then I could even ping Megan Bowen and say, hey, I'm finding a protected file that was protected outside, and this is against organizational policy. Or if I see something like, a bunch of cat videos, that I send a cat video to Haley. Haley sends a dog video back. She's a dog lover. I'm a cat lover in this scenario. And I send her another cat video. Those movie files would not be scannable, right? So they would be unindexed. So I would see that Haley and Tom keep sending each other cute animal videos, and they should knock it the heck off. So I could communicate to Haley and Tom and say, quit using, organization resources for your private videos. Again, looking at these jobs, when did I start something? When is it done? I can look at the different types, as I can filter on here and say not only, find me all the things that were done, find me all the things that are in progress. So again, I can get very granular here and say, hey, I just want to find all of those items that are in progress. And boom, I can see those items very, very quickly and easily. So when I've set everything up, I've configured everything, I've cast my net, I've taken my searches, I've popped those into review sets. This is where the magic happens. So this is where really neat things happen. I can export this list of review sets. I'm not exporting the actual content here. I can come into this content. You'll see that I can generate some additional queries and have additional filters and filter content based upon a condition. You'll see a number of additional conditions in here, quite a plethora of conditions for you to work from. Or I can get pretty granular and actually create a query. Like just I was joking around and I used the and I thought this was pretty cool because what some people will do, particularly sneaky people, when they're hiding content. And the most beautiful thing about our solution here, and you don't have to worry, yes, having a larger monitor would be good, but we can always zoom this out if we're going to go through and review content on our screen. We can look at this, but this is a Word document. It shows me the source view. So how did this document ship? How was it put on a website? How was it popped onto a SharePoint library? How was it shared with people externally? I can see exactly what this looks like. With these nefarious people out there, the trick that they use is that they'll pop a picture in and they'll put the text behind the picture. So I was doing a query for the word the, remember, and you don't know if there's content behind this picture, but I could go into my text view mode here and then get right to and see exactly where all the keywords that I'm searching for in this query appear. So I can scroll down and get to the very bottom here and see all of the text and have my line number if I'm doing some type of GUID, and a line number for my Bates numbering. I can leverage this for that. So this is pretty cool. The other thing I can do, if there's content or information as I'm reviewing here, and maybe, hey, I don't want people to see these stakeholders' names. I need to redact that. So I'm going to go into an annotation view and then find their information in this document. And I've got their information here, and I'm going to redact that. I can choose a different color if different things like maybe names and personal identifiable information is in a blue color of redaction. So I can redact this information away, have that redacted. If there's some other information here, like maybe this is a forward-looking statement, and our forward-looking statements should just be redacted with our normal redaction. So I'm going to redact this information. If I have the appropriate rights, like Megan Bowen does here, she can see through those redactions. And the other tool that we have in here is a pencil. So if I needed to highlight something, in red, like on this document scope, I can come back here and take that pencil. I think I got the pencil, and highlight this document scope. And again, I did that with the see-through on, so I can, I'm trying to draw here. Not a good drawer today. The other thing, while I'm reviewing this, I can say, hey, this is partially responsive, not in whole. I've got one customer, they did a kind of a cool thing. They liked the whole work assignment thing. So they created tags to assign content, and then they do a query for the Tim or Sally, or maybe next week, Thanksgiving, Tim is going to take the entire week off and Sally will be around. So maybe I want to tag both of them, and whoever gets to the item first can do it. You can manage these tags and add tags on the fly. So again, I can add a section and then create that section and description, and then add or delete that, but I could add content below it, just like I have these radial buttons and check boxes here. So know that you can manage those tags. The other thing that you're seeing here is our duplicates page. So you'll see the original item, and then you'll see duplicates that are off of the same. So this year ahead is also in our employee handbook. So I can get to that to see, you know, is this a duplicate? Does it look the same? Like here, I'm seeing, hey, not exactly, but it's near enough, right? Look at the content here. Again, I'm at 95%. So maybe the only change was this image that we kicked off the document with. Everything else here is within my 5% of similarity. And I can compare these and look at these, or if there are conversations, I could look at this in a conversation view as well. And that's important when we're done with our preview here in reviewing this shoot, sorry, I clicked the wrong button. When we're reviewing this content, that I might want to export these items, or maybe I want to, hey, these are the items that are most important and we should not forget to produce these. So I can add this to a review set for production. So these are the items that we're absolutely going to add, and I can add the tags into that review set for a final review, for example. So this is kind of a cool capability. I can track that job, see when that job is finished, or I could just export these or download them. I can download them to my local machine if I need to, or I can export those. And with the redactions, I can convert the redacted files to a PDF to flatten that file and send the redaction along with it. I always joke that we always hide important things under ellipses or gears, so I always look for gears on the page. And within here, you do have a nice analytics report that will tell you, hey, where did this information come from? How much is duplicates or how much is unique? What's an exact duplicate? You can see how much of my content, 3,800 of these items are exact duplicates. Not a lot for me to review here. Again, where are the sources? What have I exported, etc. So some great case analytics here, and that analytics was done automatically. I've got a nice summary report. Well, there it was filling up here. You know, where are my documents? I could kick this off and again give it to somebody who's working on the case. I can load and upload non-Office 365 data. So data from, if I want this entire laptop or a file from a file share or an entire server, I can load that non-365 data. So these are nice capabilities that you have. And you know that if we've got Teams or Yammer conversations, we can show all the documents or family of documents or conversations. So I can group this stuff into conversations, and you'll see that true when I go to export as well, that when I am going to export this content, I could say, hey, just these selected documents or all documents. And I do want to export the tags as well as the load file. And then if I'm have conversation files, I want to export those as conversation files. Text files, replace the natives with PDFs, right? So I can do that. I can export the loose files and PDFs, so email is just added to a PST, or I can kick this off to our EDRM condensed directory structure. And if I want to save this to an SMB path or another Azure blob or some other cloud location, I can do that here as well. And it will generate a SAS token, 28 character token. Now the tokens do expire in 90 days. So you do want to make sure that you rerun this export. If you've got an export that's longer than 90 days, that token will expire and your content is BitLocker protected, so you won't be able to get to that content. So if you are exporting and keeping that content around for longer than 90 days, do update that token. The other thing here that's pretty important, when we're sorting through or looking through this content in our preview window of our 14,000, in this case, all of our items, about 14,000 items, I can choose different columns of data to sort on. So if I just wanted of a particular size, I can add that size here to the window, and then I can sort on the size of these files. So maybe I want to review, a bunch of small files first, or I want to review the extremely large files. That scroll backwards previous page thing always tends to get me. So again, here I want to go to the larger items first, and then Tom will be smart and use the scroll window. So I can see individual content here, and I do get, again, the source view, and my PowerPoint slide should come up. There we go, and I can view that preview slide by slide, or again, even in a PowerPoint, get to the text view and then annotate this and redact content. We are working on coded redaction, so being able to take advantage of sensitive information. I wrote a little thing that looks at sensitivity labels and actually redacts content based upon what the sensitivity label catches. It's by, no, I'm not a developer. I'm not paid to be a program manager or engineer at Microsoft. I'm a pre-sales support person. But I did it as kind of a proof of concept to show a customer what they could do. And I know that they replicated that work very quickly, but it was redacting content based upon it being flagged as sensitive information. So pretty cool capability that we have. But that's pretty much it with advanced eDiscovery. A lot of nice, neat features, function capabilities for you to explore in advanced eDiscovery. And I would say do spend some time with the keyword query language. And then the other thing that is really important is we do have these customer satisfaction unit. We have these workshop pluses that are offered to you. So there's 1 day, 3 day, 5 day trainings. There are 200 level, 300 level, 500 level, and very customizable. And what I love about these sessions is attendees will get a resource lab. They'll get their own tenant populated with data, and they'll be able to use that for up to 6 months after the workshop. The other thing I love about this, not only do you have a nice playground to sandbox to experiment and play around in, but B, these things have been custom tailored. So I had a customer just the other day, they just wanted to focus on core eDiscovery and advanced eDiscovery in keyword query language. So they kicked out modules 1, 2, and 5. They spent an entire day on 3 and 4 and added keyword query language to that. So it's really nice. The people who present these are, experts. They're really well versed in eDiscovery compliance, and I just can't say enough about these. But it's a deeper dive. But I would start again with the nice content that we have out here in our documentation. And again, you can get to this very quickly by clicking on any of the blue links that have an overview of our advanced eDiscovery as the link that I just clicked, and then you can read through and get this. But again, if you'd rather be taught than learn on your own, maybe you're a visual learner or an experiential learner, as I am. I need to see it, touch it, feel it, do it before I can learn it. Then the Workshop Plus is a good way to go, because in the morning it's an overview walkthrough of the capabilities, and then the afternoon really a hands-on lab that you're going to go through. So with that, we're concluded. I want to thank you again for investing this time with me today. Appreciate your interest in advanced eDiscovery and the other compliance features with inside of Office 365. And thanks for spending time. Bye for now.